walk around the rear. I'm going to turn the rear starting unit to off. Then I'm going to do 33 fled. 33 fled is 3 oils and then 3 other things called the A, B, C, and then fled, F-L-E-D. 33 is 3 oils. The first oil that I check is the power steering. I'm going to make sure it's in proper fluid oil level. I'm going to check the antifreeze. I'm going to make sure it's in proper fluid level. I'm going to check my third oil, which is my oil. I'm going to pull out the dipstick. I'm going to put it back in, pull it back out, make sure it's between the add and the full. That's the 3 oils. The next 3 things that I'm going to do is the alternator, belt, and compressor. The alternator needs to be secure. Make sure that there's no missing nuts and bolts. And then I'm going to make sure that the wiring is not BBE, burnt, broke, exposed. Next is the B. That's A. This is B, belt. Make sure that it is not 1/2 inch to 3/4 deflection. That's how I remember 1/2 inch to 3/4 is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to make sure it's secure, not cut, cracked, or frayed. I'm going to come down here to the compressor. A for alternator, B for belt, C for compressor. Make sure that it's secure. No missing nuts or bolts. I'm going to make sure that it's not leaking fluid or air. That's 3 fluids. 3 next things, A, B, C. Next thing is fled, F-L-E-D. F, frame. I'm going to make sure it's secure. No missing nuts or bolts. Make sure it's not cracked or illegal welds. L, make sure that there's no leaks. The things that can leak are hoses. I'm going to check my hoses to make sure that they're secure, not cut, cracked, or frayed. That's FL. Next is E. Exhaust. Make sure it's secure. No missing nuts or bolts. Make sure that there's no holes or exhaust trails. D. Drive shaft U-joint. Make sure that there's no free play. Make sure that it is lubricated. Make sure that it's not broken or dented. That's 33 fled in the back. Then I'm going to turn this thing back on to front, and I'm going to close the panel. I'm going to come around to the side panels, make sure that all my panels are secure. Next, I'm going to do the mud flap. MUD for mud. M is mounted securely. U, uncut. D, no more than 10 inches off the ground. Then I'm going to come to the wheel. I'm going to reach in and make sure that there is nothing, no debris between the wheels, the duals. Make sure that they're not touching. If they're touching, that means one of them is flat tire. I'm going to come to the top. I'm going to make sure that the tread in the back is 2 30-seconds at least, 4 30-seconds in front. I'm going to come to the sidewall. Make sure that they're ABC. No abrasions. B, bulges. C, cuts. I'm going to come to the rim. I'm going to make sure that there's no cracks or illegal welds and no bulges on the bead flange, which is right around the tire here. I'm going to come into the air gauge. I'm going to make sure that it is in proper air gauge or air pressure, and I'm going to do that with an air gauge. I'm going to go to the lug nuts, and I'm going to tighten them either by hand or by lug wrench, and I'm going to make sure that there's no distortion around the bullet holes. Then I'm going to come to the hub seal and make sure that there's no grease. That's the tire. Then I'm going to stand up. When I stand up, I say this. I'm going to now do the front and rear suspension. Now to do the mount and rear suspension, I would have to crawl under there, but I don't want to get dirty, so I'm going to put a mat down. So I'm going to use mats as an acronym. M-A-T-S. M, mounts and U-bolts. I'm going to make sure that the hangers, the brackets, and the shackles are not missing or bent. I'm going to make sure A, that the airbag is not deflated, not leaking, and not rubbing. T is for torque arm. I'm going to make sure that it's secure and not missing any nuts or bolts. S is for shock absorber. I'm going to reach in there and grab them, make sure that they're secure, but no missing nuts and bolts, and that that's not leaking any air. That's MATS. Next, I'm going to schedule a brake job. I'm going to use schedule without the vowels. Schedule, S. Slack adjuster push rod. With the brakes applied, the angle between the slack adjuster and push rod is no less than 90 degrees, and that the clevis pin, the cotter keys, put my keys in my hands for the keys, and I snap my ring finger for snap ring, are not missing or bent. That's S. C is chamber. Make sure that it's secure, no missing nuts or bolts, and that it's not leaking any air. SCH. This H is for hoses. And make sure that there's no new threads and that it is not cut, cracked, or frayed or leaking any air. SCH. D is drum. And make sure it's not cracked, grooves, grease. I'm going to say same thing for brakes. All right, the lining. It's not cracked, grooves, grease, and it is at least 1/4 inch thick. That's it.